Good morning, friends. My name is Kathy Gallagher, and I've been asked to share some reflections on the readings of the day, which is the Nativity of John the Baptist. When I usually see these readings and I see the phrase in Isaiah, "The Lord called me from birth, and from my mother's womb gave me my name." When I see that, I often think about the story of John, how he was called forth, how he was called to prepare the way. But in my reflecting on today's readings, it's just so clear to me that every single one of us has been called from birth. Every single one of us has been given a name. And I just love that idea that God has this intimate and particular interest in each one of us, that in each one of us, God has put some light that needs to come into the world and calls it forth from us. The psalm says, "I praise you, Lord, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." I was looking at a 3-year-old's face the other day, and her eyes were so lit up and her smile was so beautiful. And it's so easy to see her and say, you are wonderfully made. But when it comes to myself, or when many of us look at ourselves, it's so much easier to just see those things that we find difficult to accept in ourselves, areas that we think need improvement. And I think in many of us, there's often a deep sense that there's like some pocket of our heart that's beyond love, that we have to make up for or change or hide in order for people to love us. And I think that struggle with our own worthiness, with our own lovableness, uh, is part of what we struggle with when we struggle to bring light into the world. Because the harder I work to hide myself, the harder it is for my light to shine. And part of my own reading of this psalm reminds me that God did not make my perfection a prerequisite for me being wonderful or for me being light to the world. And that is a huge consolation. There's a poet named Hafiz who says, "I wish I could show you, when you're lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being." And I think that that's what we're called to do, to show others the astonishing light of their own beings. At the end of the gospel, you'll notice that the whole community says about John, like, whoa, who is this kid going to be? It's going to be something good. And I really believe that that expectation that they early on saw his light and kept looking for it and affirming it and calling it forward is part of why his light could shine. And I hope that we will remember to do that, especially with the young people in our lives, to say to them, like, there's something special that you have that the world needs, and we cannot wait to see it. To just mirror back the light, the astonishing light, the fearful wonderfulness we see in those around us. So in Isaiah it says, "I will make you a light to the nations, so that my salvation, which I read as my love, may reach the ends of the earth." I think when we know that we are enough, it's so much easier to offer our light out into the world. And sometimes that light is to be a smile, to be a source of love or peace, to bring healing to a tense moment, or to affirm or walk with somebody in their sorrow. Like just our presence and our warmth can be a light. I also think John typifies another kind of light that God calls us to be in this world. John's light was shining on something that needed to change. He was so fearless, calling out to the people of Israel, calling out to the religious leaders of the day and the political leaders of the day, like, hey, change your ways. We need to prepare for something that's coming, and we are in bad shape right now. We need to change what we're doing so that we are actually living the law we claim to live. And his fearlessness got him into some trouble, but also prepared the way. So when Jesus came, I think the capacity of people to hear his radical message of God's loving forgiveness and his call to have us love our neighbor as ourselves. The reason people could hear that is because first, John's call to conversion had helped them change their hearts, so it was more open to the message Jesus was bringing. So sometimes I think our light needs to shine on difficult things, shine on things that need to change, and call that change forward so that we can prepare the way for the kingdom of God. I was thinking of Darnella Frazier, who's the 17-year-old girl who had the courage to videotape what was happening to George Floyd when he was murdered at the hands of police. And then later she shared that video with the world. And that video really has become a light to the nations, shining on something so painful. Like it's just putting our eyes on this collective sin of systemic racism, of violence against people of color, and really shining a light for me on my own complicity and my own complacency with that system. And it's really asking me, like, how are you going to change? This video has literally shed light all around the world and has called forth people to some moments of reckoning to ask ourselves, how do we change? So I'm so grateful to her for letting that light shine and allowing her courageous actions to be that light in the world that we need so much right now. So, as we reflect on the readings today, just a few things I'd invite. One is for us to spend some time really being able to see ourselves with God's loving eyes, to see how we are fearfully, wonderfully made, and to look within ourselves and see what is the light that's being called forward in a world that's got a lot of darkness. How are we called to encourage the light in those around us? And how can we walk together, bringing light, bringing salvation to every corner of the world?